All right, so we're diving deep today into the wild world of crypto exchanges. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Bybit and OKX to see which one might be a good fit for you guys out there. And for this deep dive, we're turning to some awesome YouTube videos made by like actual experienced traders and stuff.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see how these exchanges have become like way more than just places to trade.
Right.
They're like full-on ecosystems now with crazy features for like literally everyone.
Yeah. And speaking of crazy, one video I saw said Bybit has over 830 assets. 830?
Oh, no.
Is that even like necessary?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like having a ton of choices can seem awesome at first, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like, what's the word? Like if you have too many options, it can actually be a bad thing.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, a platform with like 830 assets might sound cool, but if half of them have like zero liquidity, it's actually pain.
It's like having a menu with 1,000 dishes, but only like 5 of them are actually available.
Exactly.
So how do Bybit and OKX compare when it comes to liquidity?
Both of them are known for having really good liquidity, especially for the most popular cryptos. But there's a subtle difference here. High liquidity basically means you can buy or sell without messing with the price too much.
Yeah, okay.
But very high liquidity, which you see on some of the big exchanges, means you can trade massive amounts with like almost no price slippage.
So for, the average person who's not trading millions of dollars at a time, does that difference even matter?
Well, it really depends on how you trade and how much you're usually buying or selling. If you're just messing around with small amounts, the difference between high and very high liquidity probably won't even be noticeable.
Okay.
But if you're planning on making like some seriously big trades, that extra liquidity can be a game changer.
All right, so they're both good in terms of liquidity, but do they appeal to different types of traders? Like, is one better for beginners and the other for pros?
Yeah, that's where we start to see some clear differences. So OKX tends to attract like more cautious traders and beginners because they focus on well-established projects and offer lower leverage options.
So it's a good place to, like, dip your toes in the water without jumping in head first.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And what about Bybit? Is that more for, like, experienced traders who are comfortable with, advanced tools and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. They offer leverage up to 100x, which is pretty wild if you don't know what you're doing. They also have a wider range of tools like futures, options, and derivatives, which are usually used by like more experienced traders.
100x leverage, that's insane. It's like, I don't know, strapping a rocket to your investments or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important to really understand how leverage works. It can make you a ton of money, but it can also wipe you out super fast.
Yikes. So for anyone new to trading, it's probably best to stick with lower leverage or just avoid it altogether until they really get it right.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've got Bybit for the pros and OKX for the beginners. But what about fees? Are there any big differences between the two?
They're both pretty competitive when it comes to fees, but there is a slight difference. OKX tends to be a bit better for spot trading, especially for what they call makers, who are traders who provide liquidity to the market by placing limit orders.
Can you break that down a bit more? Like, what does it mean to be a maker in spot trading, and why would OKX's fees be better for them?
So a maker is basically someone who places an order that doesn't get filled right away.
Okay.
They're basically adding to the order book by saying, hey, I'm willing to buy or sell at this specific price. OKX usually charges them lower fees because they're helping to make the market more efficient.
That makes sense. So if someone's mostly into buying and holding crypto for the long term, using limit orders on OKX could save them some money on fees.
Yeah, exactly. But it's important to note that the fee differences are usually pretty small, so it shouldn't be the only thing you consider when choosing an exchange.
Okay, so we've got Bybit with its massive selection and OKX with its beginner-friendly vibes. But there are a ton of other exchanges out there, right? Like, what about BitGet and Binance?
Oh yeah, for sure. The crypto world is constantly changing, and new exchanges are popping up all the time. In one of the YouTube videos we watched, a trader specifically mentioned BitGet and Binance as being worth checking out.
Cool. What's so special about BitGet? Is it just, like, really easy to use?
That's a big part of it. BitGet is known for its user-friendly interface, so it's a good option for both new and experienced traders who just want things to be simple.
And Binance. I feel like everyone's heard of Binance. They're like the Google of crypto, right?
Pretty much. Binance is huge, with a ton of users,
Mm-hmm.
insane liquidity, and pretty much every altcoin you can imagine.
Wow. But didn't they also have some, like, controversies and stuff.
Yeah, they have had some regulatory issues in the past, which is a good reminder that, no exchange is perfect. It's always important to do your own research before you commit to one.
Right, definitely. So we've got Bybit, OKX, BitGit, Binance. But there's a whole other category of exchanges that we haven't even talked about yet.
Oh, you mean decentralized exchanges?
Yeah, DXs.
Right. They're super interesting because they're kind of a whole different approach to crypto trading.
Yeah. Instead of using a central authority to handle the trades, they use blockchain technology for peer-to-peer trading. One of the videos was really hyped about AlphaX, a DX that focuses on privacy and user control. What are some of the biggest advantages of using a DX like that?
One of the coolest things about DXs is that they don't usually have KYC requirements. You don't have to go through all that annoying identity verification stuff, which is a big plus for people who are concerned about privacy.
That's huge, especially these days when everyone's worried about data privacy. Are there any other benefits?
Another potential advantage is security. Because DEXs don't actually hold your funds, they're less likely to be hacked. Your crypto stays in your own wallet, so you have complete control over it.
That sounds amazing. So if DXs offer more privacy, potentially better security, and you actually own your crypto, why isn't everyone using them? There's got to be some downsides, right?
Yeah, of course. One of the main drawbacks is that their user interfaces can be a bit clunky compared to centralized exchanges. You often need to be a bit more tech-savvy to use them effectively.
Ah, so it's like the difference between using a fancy app and having to type in code, right?
Exactly. They both get the job done, but one is definitely easier to use.
What about liquidity? How do DXs compare to the big centralized exchanges in terms of liquidity?
Liquidity on DXs can be a bit more hit or miss. Because they rely on users to provide liquidity, it can vary a lot depending on the specific platform and the trading pair you're looking at. You might not always find the same level of liquidity for, like, smaller or less popular tokens.
So it sounds like DXs have their pros and cons, just like everything else. For traders who are all about privacy and control, they might be a good fit. But for those who want a smooth user experience and consistent liquidity, a centralized exchange is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Before we wrap this up, we gotta talk about leverage, especially since we've mentioned it a few times already. One of the videos did a fantastic job of explaining how leverage is basically like borrowing money to trade, which can amplify your gains but also your losses. It can be exciting, but it can also be super risky. What are some of the key things to keep in mind when it comes to leverage?
That video had a great analogy. Remember, using high leverage is kind of like playing with fire. You can get burned really badly if you're not careful. Understanding liquidation risks is crucial. If the market moves against you and you're using high leverage, you could lose everything really quickly.
Ouch, that's scary. So what can traders do to protect themselves? Are there any safety measures?
One of the most important things is to set stop-loss orders. A stop-loss order basically tells the exchange to automatically sell your position if the price drops to a certain level, which helps to limit your potential losses.
So it's like putting a safety net under your rocket-powered investments.
Exactly. Stop-loss orders are your best friend when you're using leverage. They help you manage risk and protect your capital.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from liquidity and fees to security and leverage. It's been a wild ride.
It has. But we're just getting started. We'll be back in a few minutes with part 2 of our deep dive into the world of crypto exchanges, where we'll explore even more essential factors to consider before you make that final decision. So stick around.
See you soon.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive on crypto exchanges.
Yeah, we've talked about a bunch of big names already, like Bybit, OKX, Binance, and even those like decentralized exchanges. We've seen how important things like liquidity and fees and leverage are when picking the right platform.
For sure.
But those aren't the only things to consider, right? What about like security, customer support, and how easy the platform is to use? Those are super important too. Oh, absolutely. Those things can literally make or break your whole trading experience. Let's start with security. That's got to be like the #1 priority when you're dealing with, your actual money.
Totally.
Yeah.
You want to pick an exchange that's known for being safe and has like top-notch security measures in place. What are some of the things to watch out for?
Two-factor authentication is a must. Like, you absolutely need that extra layer of security for your account.
Okay.
And look for exchanges that use cold storage for most of their crypto. That basically means they keep your funds offline, away from hackers and stuff.
So it's like a super secure vault for your crypto?
Yeah, Pretty much. But even with the best security in the world, sometimes things can still go wrong.
Right.
That's when you need a good customer support team to help you out.
Definitely. You want an exchange that's responsive and helpful and ideally has like a bunch of ways to reach them: live chat, email, maybe even phone support for emergencies.
Exactly.
I've heard some nightmare stories about exchanges with terrible customer support.
Oh, it's like being lost in the middle of nowhere with no way to call for help. So, is there any way to figure out how good an exchange's customer support is before you sign up?
Reading reviews from other users can be really helpful.
Okay.
Look for patterns in the feedback. Like, are people generally happy with the support they get? Are issues resolved quickly and efficiently? Those are good signs.
It's like getting the inside scoop from people who've actually used the platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so security and customer support are huge.
Mm-hmm.
But what about like the actual user experience? Some of these platforms can be so confusing, especially if you're new to trading. All those charts and order books and technical indicators, it can be overwhelming.
I know, right?
Oh,
That's why having a well-designed, intuitive interface is so important. You want an exchange that makes it easy to find your way around, place trades, and track your portfolio, regardless of your experience level.
it shouldn't feel like you need a PhD in finance to figure out how to buy or sell crypto.
Totally. Luckily, a lot of exchanges are really focusing on user-friendliness these days.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, they're using clean layouts, clear explanations, and even offering educational resources to help people get started.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've covered security, customer support, and how easy the platform is to use. What other like hidden tips do you have for us when picking an exchange?
One thing that people often forget about is payment methods. You want to make sure the exchange supports the ways you want to deposit and withdraw money, whether it's bank transfers, credit cards, or even crypto-to-crypto exchanges.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I remember once I spent hours trying to figure out how to transfer money from my bank to an exchange. It was a total nightmare.
Ugh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
It's always a good idea to check the exchange's website or reach out to their support team to make sure you understand their deposit and withdrawal process.
Oh, good point.
And speaking of potential roadblocks, did you remember that video where they mentioned that some exchanges might not be available in certain countries because of like regulations and stuff?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, it's super important to keep in mind. Crypto regulations are different everywhere. Some exchanges might be banned in certain places or have different rules depending on where you live.
It's like trying to solve a giant puzzle, figuring out which exchanges are allowed where.
It can be. So it's really important to do your research and make sure the exchange you're thinking about using is actually legal and compliant where you live.
Okay, so we've talked about security, good customer support, an easy-to-use platform, different payment options, and making sure the exchange is allowed in your country. That's a lot to think about.
It is. Choosing a crypto exchange is kind of like putting together a team of superheroes.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You need the right combination of strengths to succeed.
Each exchange has its own unique superpowers,
Right.
and it's our job to find the team that best fits our needs and goals.
Exactly. So as we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive, I want you to think about what matters most to you in a crypto exchange. What are your must-haves?
That's a great question. We'll be back in just a minute with the final part of this episode to help you put all the pieces together and make that final decision. So don't go anywhere. All right, we're back for the final round of our crypto exchange deep dive.
We've looked at a ton of different platforms, from the big centralized ones like Bybit and Binance to the more decentralized and privacy-focused ones like AlphaX.
Yeah, we talked about all those important things too, like security, customer support, and just how easy the platform is to use. It's been a lot to take in.
It has been. So now it's time to bring it all together and help you guys out there figure out which exchange is the perfect fit for your crypto goals. Let's recap what we learned about some of the top contenders, starting with Bybit. They've got a massive selection, and they seem to really cater to more experienced traders who are comfortable with higher leverage and all those fancy trading tools.
Okay.
And then there's OKX, which is known for being super beginner-friendly and focusing on well-established projects, so it's a good option for people who are just starting out.
Right.
And then we've got those decentralized exchanges like AlphaX, which are all about privacy and giving users more control over their crypto. But, they do have some downsides when it comes to user experience and liquidity.
Yeah.
So, there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. The best exchange for you really depends on, what you're looking for and what your goals are.
So how do you figure out which exchange is the right fit for you? Like, what questions should people be asking themselves?
That's a good question. I think the first thing to consider is, like, what are your investment objectives? Are you planning to actively trade, or are you more into just buying and holding for the long term?
Okay. Yeah.
What's your risk tolerance? Like, how comfortable are you with the idea of potentially losing money, and what features are essential for your trading style?
That's a good starting point. It's like building a custom checklist for your dream crypto exchange.
Exactly.
But even after considering all that stuff, it can still feel kind of overwhelming, right? Especially if you're new to all of this.
Yeah, I know what you mean. My advice would be to just take it slow. Don't try to do everything at once. Start with a small amount of money, try out a couple of different exchanges, and see which one feels the most comfortable and intuitive for you.
That's a good tip.
You know, it's like test driving a car before you actually buy it.
Yeah. And speaking of testing the waters, one of the videos we watched suggested using demo accounts. Do you think those are helpful?
Oh, definitely.
Uh,
A lot of exchanges offer demo accounts where you can practice trading with fake money. It's a risk-free way to get familiar with the platform, experiment with different strategies, and just get a feel for how everything works.
so it's like training wheels for crypto trading.
Pretty much.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's your final piece of advice for anyone who's ready to jump into the world of crypto exchanges?
Just remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Take your time, do your research, and choose an exchange that you feel good about, one that aligns with your needs and your risk tolerance. And don't be afraid to, like, experiment and ask questions and just keep learning as you go. The crypto world is always changing, so there's always something new to discover.
Awesome advice. So to all you listeners out there who are ready to start your crypto trading journey, we say choose wisely, trade safely, and most importantly, enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Happy trading, everyone.